Good morning. Morning, everyone. Morning. Yeah. Thank you for coming to PhNOG 2015 and APNIC's regional meeting here in Manila. It's great to see everyone. And first, let's acknowledge the presence of our key persons. First is Akiniro Maimura, Chair of Executive Council APNIC. Let's give him a round of applause, please. Thank you. Our very own Medel Ramirez, Vice Chairman, Philippine IPv6 Forum. Institute. Mr. Gaurav Raj Upadhyaya, Director, Network Strategy and Interconnection, Limelight Networks, and also Executive Council Member of APNIC. Mr. Chi-Hu Cheng from Hong Kong IX. Ms. Anna Malingbayan from APNIC, our very own. And Mr. Vincent Atienza, that is me, from Globe Telecom, currently Chairman Pro Tempore of PhNOG and Board Member of the Internet Society. And to the rest of the members, audiences, welcome. It is our great pleasure to welcome you all to APNIC Regional Meeting and the relaunching of our PhNOG, which is a Philippine Network Operators Group. Today, we once again leap forward to a more concrete action in our endeavor. To start with, please all stand for our Philippine National Anthem.
Pilipinas.
With the Science Ministry Management. Good morning to all of you. I'd like to welcome you to another APNIC regional meeting. The last that we had, I think, was the one in 2014 when APNIC sponsored the 20th anniversary celebrations for the Philippine Internet. Yesterday, the APNIC Executive Council had a meeting here in Manila, and we are very fortunate that they chose Manila as one of their venues for the EC Council meeting. So I think the APNIC EC is the highest body governing the APNIC organization, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. So for this year's ARM and the PhNOG event, we're very fortunate to have them and to have several hopefully exciting talks. Hopefully it's exciting for you. We're very excited. It's of the networks located all the way in Los Baños. Then another talk is about how to do a proper NOG. So since we are starting one up in the Philippines, outside of the country, there will be some IX updates. We're very fortunate to have Hong Kong IX give an update. They are the second biggest IX here in the Asia-Pacific region. And last, we will have a peering forum wherein different networks can introduce themselves, and hopefully some will speak about the benefits of peering here in the Philippines. So I hope you maximize the day. Apologies if we started late. I think a lot of the people are stuck in traffic as of now. Anyway, quality much as possible from this event. Okay, so I hope you guys also stay for drinks later tonight. APNIC is buying. I think it's an open bar, if I'm not mistaken. So let's not give them a reason not to come back to Manila again. So hopefully you enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.
Talk points, so thank you. So you gave me a reason to shorten my script. Next, let us call on Mr. Akinido Maimura.
The APNIC Executive Council. It's my great pleasure to be here for the APNIC regional meeting, ARM, in conjunction with the PhNOG, the Philippines Network Operators Group. Now meeting in Philippines. ARM cannot be held without a great support. Thank our wonderful hosts, PhNOG and ASTI, for their help to make it happen. APNIC, Asia Pacific Network Information Center, is the internet registry for this region, with its core business to manage and distribute the number of resources like IP addresses and autonomous system numbers. These numbers are fundamentally important because the internet doesn't work without them. I would say, in the term, the internet is working management. It is not true if you thought number resource management is done only by the internet registries like APNIC. APNIC is a membership organization with more than 4,000 members for carriers throughout the Asia Pacific region. APNIC's policies for the IP address management are developed through the open and the bottom-up process in the broader community. Indispensable that the community is familiar with the APNIC business. Meeting activities 2 years ago in 2013 to showcase the APNIC activities in front of you. And this ARM is the great opportunity for you to experience them and get involved in them. As you will see, APNIC is no longer doing only resource management, but also doing various activities to further underpin the sustainable internet. I would like you to get to know them as much as possible and make full use of them. This time the ARM is in conjunction with PhNOG, your network operator. Good care of them. The internet is living and changes time to time. The techniques and expertise to have it working is not given by a certain authority, but to be elaborated, shared, and deployed among the network engineers. This is what NOGs are all about. And human network among the network operators through the network operators groups underpins the internet. Therefore, I would say the internet works by IP over human network, or even IP over NOGs. There are 16 NOGs in the Asia Pacific regions. Myself was involved in one of them in Japan, JANOG, Japan Network Operators Group, as the founding committee member since 1997. They are all groups where network operators can come together to share experience and learn from each other. This helps foster trust, better working relationship, and helps building a better internet for everyone. I would encourage you to get more involved in the APNIC community. As I've said here, internet works by IP over resource management and IP over human network, or IP over NOGs. They together underpin the internet. A greater human network will bring you greater experience and strength as an engineer. For those who can make it, APNIC 40 conference will be held in Jakarta in September. It will have not only the sessions for the IP number management, but also rich lineup of the technical sessions. I'm looking forward to seeing you there. I'm here with my colleagues at APNIC Executive Council. As already introduced, the APNIC EC is the governing board of the APNIC, elected by the community and the members of the APNIC. Here we have the 6 members out of 8. We had a quarterly meeting, EC meeting yesterday to tackle on our serious business. And today we are ready and look forward to seeing you and talking with you. We will be at the lunch today, and so please feel free to come and talk to us. We are quite happy to have any conversation and to answer any questions from you. So please have a great day and enjoy the APNIC regional meeting. It is in conjunction with the PhNOG. Thank you very much.
ありがとうございます、マイモロさん。Now to give us an update on APNIC, let's call on Director General Mr. Paul Wilson. Mr. Wilson has been the head of APNIC for 16 years and has been involved with the Internet for 25 years now. As head of APNIC, he has led APNIC's development throughout Asia Pacific, working with communities and organizations involved in Internet development, including ISP.
The technology is always fun, even with a Mac. Okay, it's great to be back here in Manila, and as I said, thank you all very much for braving the traffic and coming in and joining us here. Why that's happened, I do not know, but let's see. Technology. Go away, Microsoft Word. I don't want you anymore. Let us see. All right. Thanks. As Akinori said, my chairman, as he said, we're here APNIC for a few reasons. One of them is definitely to meet with you. And it's fantastic to see such a great crowd of APNIC community members. Now, I'm not sure how many of you are actually members of APNIC and how many are here because you're interested. How many are members in the audience here now? Okay, welcome. Thank you for your support, but thanks to everyone for being here. And this presentation is really an effort to bring some updates and information about what is happening at APNIC, but I'll start with just a few words about what APNIC is all about for those of you who might not know. You'll hear that we have many meetings or regular meetings at APNIC with the community in different parts of the region, but we know that not everyone can get to those meetings very easily at all. So this is kind of like a mini APNIC meeting, an opportunity for you to hear more and understand more and to also participate. So if there's any questions, anything you'd like to know here on the floor, there's a microphone here, or of course, as you heard, at lunchtime. Please really feel free to take the opportunity. We really do want you to get to know APNIC better and vice versa. And so I'll just start. What is APNIC? Akinori mentioned it already. We're the Regional Internet Address Registry for the Asia Pacific, and that means that we're Asia Pacific region for allocating those addresses to people who need them, to network operators primarily, and also for registering them in the public WHOIS database so anyone can find out, what's the source of an IP packet, based on the address that it carries. But Akinori also mentioned that we're responsible and have always taken a strong interest in the development of the internet in this region through different means which are associated with the primary responsibilities we have. So we've always been involved since the beginning in training in internet infrastructure development and support activities around the region. And the whole point is to upgrade and to help to maintain the quality, the reliability, the stability of the internet in this region. We're a neutral party, not connected to any government, any vendor, any company at all. We're membership-based, so all of the members who are here have the opportunity to take part in governing APNIC, for instance. And we've been operating since 1993. We're one of 5 regional internet registries. There are 4 others serving different regions of the world. APNIC has been around since 1993, as I mentioned, like the other 2 large registries, which are right, because we serve around about half of the world's population, and I'd say we serve the vast majority of demand for internet developments that's going to happen in the next 10 years. So we've really got quite a job to do together. Our vision is of a global, open, stable and secure internet that serves the entire Asia-Pacific community. And that's really important. That's why internet addresses are important, to support that structure, but what to support, in fact, all of those aspects of the internet. But what is also important, as I mentioned before, is to make sure that the internet can grow better and to be more secure and open through things like human capacity development, human resource development, training and education and technical assistance and so on. So that's just a brief introduction to APNIC, but I guess if you've got some more questions about what we are, they might be answered by knowing more about what we do. So I'm going to talk about what we do as the IP address registry for the region. That's in 3 sort of areas. So APNIC is definitely a service organisation. We provide services to members and to customers in the region, not only inside the region but globally, with our other RIR counterparts and with other organisations that are involved with the internet and others. So you'll hear something about all 3 of those areas in the next 20 minutes or so. Firstly, serving the region. We have, as you heard, upwards of 4,500 members in the region. That number has been growing actually more rapidly these days. Counter to expectations, actually, some people have sort of felt that actually we're having an increase in the number of members that are coming in because there are still small amounts of address space that are available for qualified organisations. And I'll talk about that. But you can see the growth here. What is not shown here is the fact that we've got a few national registry organisations that add about another 4,000 network operators to this chart. 6, so we are of course responsible for allocating and managing both of those address spaces, and we report on the allocations, the rate of consumption, the allocations and other issues around those address spaces. So firstly, IPv6. We have allocated a huge amount of IPv6 address space in the region. There's much more that's available. There's still a lot of work to be done, which is something you'll be hearing about later on. And also to by the APNIC community through our policy development process that has rationed the last large block of IPv4 address space. And so that rationed supply of just small blocks is available, 1 per organisation. And the first ration block that you can get is only 1,000 organisations who qualify for it, and that supply is going to be available for quite a few more years. It's important to have access to that in order that you can actually transition to IPv6. Now, there's actually a little more address space available than that because there's a supply of what we call returned address space. It's kind of recycled address space that comes back to us through members. And if you do qualify and you're not yet an APNIC member, you can join and receive one of these, 1 or 2 of these small allocations for your needs. The other thing that's happening with IPv4 address space, importantly, is the ability to transfer it from one organisation the long ago past, 10, 20 years ago. A lot of space has been allocated and is not necessarily very well used. It's very difficult to get that space back, but if you happen to have some of that space, it's now possible, if you don't need it anymore, to transfer it to someone else. So there's a kind of an open market developing for address space, which allows people who need space to also buy it on that market. And we're doing quite a number of transfers. We've transferred quite a large amount of address space so far from the ARAN region from North America, which helps to serve the needs in this region as well. Autonomous system numbers, it's the third number space that we allocated, and autonomous system numbers, although it's not nearly as well known and it's not the same sort of management challenge as the IP services from us, but we're continuing to develop that. There's a lot of changes in the environment. There are lots of new demands, and also to respond to your needs if you've got some requests or needs for APNIC services. The WHOIS database is something I mentioned. It's the globally available registry that tells anyone what is the status and who is using any particular bit of IP address space that comes from our region. And that's also being improved. We've actually distributed our WHOIS servers around the world these days. We are resilient against attacks. Now the WHOIS service is not really something that people want to take offline or damage, but it just happens that for whatever reason, kids or hackers or people practicing their skills, they sort of occasionally attack the WHOIS service, and we get some big spikes a second that come into those servers, different servers which are absorbing those occasional attacks that we get. And by localising that attack traffic, it means the rest of the network is not affected so much. We're improving the internal systems architecture at APNIC, moving from a Perl-based platform to Java, using a message bus architecture to make things more reliable. We carry a crucial sort of global responsibility that's directly connected with the sustainable, stable operation of the internet. So we do spend resources on making sure that our internal systems architecture and so forth is working very well. We've got a load of servers online, 175 plus at last count, which have all been virtualized, or at the organisational level where we find that I might just adjust this because it's making a lot of noise. We find that we feel that the accountability and transparency of the organisation are pretty important to give the proper level of confidence that APNIC had at heart. So we also spend a fair amount of resource on the sort of internal infrastructure of the administration and governance of the organisation. And if you're really curious and want to know how APNIC works internally as a corporation, as an organisation, then you can find a lot of information on the website about that. And as we audit our operations, we've got quality assurance, certification and so on. It's all available on the website. The APNIC activity plans and budgets are our activities in our budget under those three major categories I mentioned before: serving our members and internet development in the region and the global collaborative side of things. The fourth one down the bottom here is the corporate sort of overheads of the organisation. But we break things down so that you can really see what's going to training, what's going to events, what's going to member services and so on. Reasonable amount, that's something that was effective from January this year. So if you haven't seen that in your membership renewal, then you'll see it sometime before the end of this year. Now I'll move on to what we're doing around the organisation and throughout the region. As I say, in the interests of making sure that the internet, the responsibilities that APNIC have involve a kind of authority over the IPs, and those rules come from the members, from the community actually. So the entire Asia access to IPv6 addresses, how the registry works and so on. So we've got a cycle that goes on through events which happen once they're adjusted. Once a decision is made by the community, we have to do what we're told. And that's how this process works, both in this region and also throughout the rest of the RAR system. It's quite important. This what we call a bottom-up community consensus-based process. It's quite important. It always has been to the development and the governance of the internet. These days they call it the multi-stakeholder system of internet governance because it really can involve anyone who has an interest. Okay, so through the APNIC policy development system, there's some details. Policy proposal 115 separate policy proposals which come through the process and become binding on what APNIC does. We host this policy development forum through these meetings that happen twice a year. I mentioned earlier it's unfortunate that these meetings have to happen in particular places and that often members of the community can't attend in person. But you can attend these meetings online. From about now on, we've just introduced a system where you can also participate in this consensus process. So if you're watching the meeting and there's the chair of the of opinion on a policy proposal, then you can actually see exactly how that discussion is. Try and include more and more people in the processes that we're coordinating. Now I mentioned I'm moving on. I mentioned training before. Our conference events twice a year on technical topics related directly to IP addressing and address management or routing, security, DNS and other related topics. 75 courses in 29 different locations. We've got video archives of training sessions online and they are very well used. I don't know who by, but last year we had 177,000 views of those. But that's training. You can see it's a pretty important part of what we do. The other place that we actually try and bring training, as well as other information and networking and exchange and so forth, are the network operator groups. So you know about PhNOG. It's one of a growing number of network operator groups around the region. I really can't stress highly enough both professional and personal and business relationships, such as you'll see in the peer. You're coming in representing an organisation potentially, and you can establish who you're going to peer with, who you're going to interconnect with to build the internet in this country, helping them to start up where there are new ones forming, and just coming along and providing this kind of both moral and content sort of support, I guess. So throughout, it's increasing very nicely these days. It's very good to see. This is all part of, I guess, a broad concept of development of the internet community and assisting the internet community. We're also, providing who actually need kind of advice and help with their own challenges. It's all very well to have training courses and to sort of teach the basics and then to have workshops and really work through them, but often the challenges that you face as network operators are kind of pretty into a country to conduct meetings, to really sort of consult and give some concrete help, because we're anywhere in the world actually. It's the human expert to our meetings are also a way to bring people into these processes, and if you haven't seen the fellowship opportunities that are available for some partial funding for expenses, then that's something to keep an eye on as well. So in addition to these twice a year meetings, the conference meetings, the regional meetings are also again to achieve all of these. There's a lot of people who are sort of calling out for help with IPv6. There's a lot of people concerned about to be properly to the entire internet architecture. So we're being continually asked by our members to provide more information and support for IPv6 information statistics about it and so forth. And so again, we're trying to IPv6 task forces, the regional task force, and providing both training and technical assistance. That's something that's has been an increasing demand, steadily increasing for many years. I think in more recent years is internet security. King on is something that's a great concern not only to you as people who are actually creating this stuff, but to the governments and the law enforcement agencies and so forth around you. So we've got a new and increasing focus on kind of a popular internet governance issue these days. So again, security is something that you'll see in our training courses and reports and activity, which is kind of notoriously informal if you look at how routing arrangements are made, how interconnection arrangements are made between ISPs, or that you might be trying to actually hijack. The RPKI is the resource public key infrastructure, which is the certification of IP address allocation here. It's called Ready to ROA. ROA is a route object authentication, by the way. So this is all about promoting the use of ROAs and the registration of ROAs in the system, and your routing is authorised, and other people can rely on that information. Labs. I mentioned research before as one of the ways that we feel it's important to support the regional community. There's not much that you're doing that can't be improved with more reliable information, and so we are really publishing a great deal through the resource utilisation on DNS and BGP and so forth, so please take a look at it. We, that APNIC has, that we're able to share and use those resources to assist in other projects that are happening around the region. We're in partnership with a few development agencies here in the region on the Information Society Innovation Fund. That's supported a lot of different projects around the region that may be of interest to you as well. Okay, so just we really do have a lot of different avenues and channels where IP addressing actually is critical to others, sort of inside and outside of our community. As I mentioned, we've got 5 RIRs around the world that need to coordinate together to make sure that the system operates properly. We've got government agencies who are becoming more and more interested, more and more concerned, rightly or wrongly, with how the internet is serving them and how they can sort of mitigate risks and so forth. There is the body called ICANN, the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, which is the body or the central coordinating going on of the transition of the IANA stewardship, the Internet Assigned Numbers Authority stewardship from the US government into the hands of the community. So all of these things are sort of on the global stage, and they're things that are important for this region to participate in, and APNIC is trying to help with that, with representing views and providing information and so forth. So this IANA stewardship, can I ask how many people might be aware of this particular issue at the moment? Yeah, it's interesting. It's the IANA is this central authority that's been operated by the US government. It's become politically a little controversial because the entire world is relying on this thing that's in the hands of the US government. So back in 1999, the US, just recently the US government announced that they were ready to actually go ahead and finalise that process. And it's become, I mean, if it had been done in 1999, it would have been a lot easier actually, because the internet wasn't quite so important back then, but these days it is. So there's really a very, I'll say, complicated, huge processes going on at the moment involving different communities with an interest in the internet and in IANA functions. And so in the numbers side of the IANA functions, that's what we deal with. APNIC has been very active with the other RIRs in making sure that what difference it will make, and I can say that if it works well, it won't make any difference at all. There won't be any sort of specific little thing at all. It should be in the hands of the community. So we've had, in APNIC, we've had our members of what's called the CRISP team, the Consolidated RIR IANA Stewardship Proposal, Transition Proposal team, and we've had members of our community working very actively over the last year, in fact, on that challenge. So if you put together everything that APNIC is doing around the region and the globe, it looks pretty busy, and I hope that's sort of pretty clear to you that there's a lot happening at APNIC that we're trying to do on behalf of and in your support, in your understanding, in your contributions to these activities. We're communicating better these days through a blog, so please take a look at blog.apnic.net. It's a pretty busy place these days for a lot of information about what's happening in the region. We're improving communications mostly through social media as well, increasing our reach. And coming up very soon in September 2015, not so far from here, down in Jakarta, there is the 40th APNIC conference, and that is that event that happens twice a year where you can come and experience training, workshops, industry, relevant presentations, NOGs, IXPs, DNS, the policy development process, and more about what's happening at APNIC and in the community. So please, I hope some of you at least can come to that. And if you can't, then you can dial in. You can connect remotely, making from here as well. So look, thanks very much for your attention. I really appreciate that you've come and you're here to.
It's May from ASTI. That's me. Special thanks to ASTI for hosting APNIC regional meeting. Special thanks to PhNOG for co-hosting APNIC regional meeting. Thank you again. Okay, so we go to the next chapter of the conference for today. It will be the session proper. We actually have 3 sessions for today. First will be IPv6, and next will be the NOG, and in the afternoon it's all about IXPs. Okay. For the IPv6 session, we have 3 speakers. We have speakers from APNIC, we have IPv6 Forum, and last one from ERIE. Our first speaker is Mr. Sanjaya from APNIC. Director Sanjaya is currently Deputy General of APNIC and a member of the APNIC executive team. He oversees the implementation of APNIC strategic and operational plans. Let's give a warm welcome to Mr. Sanjaya.
Yes, thank you. Okay. Thanks, everyone. What I'm going to do at the beginning of this IPv6 session is actually to bring you some good news, actually. Happy news about IPv6, that it is on the rise. That finally all the stars and the planets are aligned. Equipment is ready. Core networks are ready, devices are ready, but the hardest to change is actually the people. And that's why I'm talking here to you, the people, the network operator, to understand that really it is time. It is time to deploy IPv6. And I can show you a lot of examples that shows that IPv6 is on the rise. So let's look at this. This is a snapshot of the internet back in January 2014. On the left is the IPv4, on the right is the IPv6. As you can see, even then, the IPv6 is already shaping up to be looking like IPv4. It's less dense, but it's already pretty dense at that time. And if in 2014 there was 40% of world population connects to the internet, then in 3 years after that it was protest to the internet. And this is the prediction for the global internet users. Basically, it's saying that around 2015 we will have around 3.5 billion people connected to the internet. But you know, we all carry more than one device. You know, I carry 2 mobile devices, one for local SIM, the other one's for my SIM back in Australia, and then I carry my laptop. Last week, my wife sent to the hotel support and said, "Can you please wipe all the 4 that you connected now, because now that we know this, I can only connect 4. Then I would prioritize my laptops and then my main mobile phone." Luckily, in this hotel, there's no limitation. network infrastructure enabling devices to connect, and more devices connect. And these devices can connect to IPv6. For example, my mobile, if I connect with, if I turn on my VPN back to Australia, it will receive IPv6 address, right? It's an Android device tunneled through VPN to my, every new app that's going to be uploaded will have to be IPv6 aware, and infrastructure, they're building huge network, millions of, hundreds and millions of devices to using IPv6. So then looking at the 3+ billion users and 25+ billion internet device, then we need billions of internet addresses now. The problem is we only have 77 million IPv4 address left. It's really tiny. If you can see the dot there, it's really tiny. We don't have much left. The IPv4 depletion continue to happen as predicted. APNIC is down on its last block in 2011, right? NCC a year after that, LACNIC 2 years after that, and this month we expect that ARIN, the North American region, will deplete their IPv4. So after that, there's only one region left with IPv4, and that will be Africa. So what's the answer? The answer is obviously IPv6 with so many billions address, and that's the dot. That's the IPv4 dot you see up there, barely seen. So what's the status of IPv6? I'll start with the global picture first, and then narrowing down to regional, and then end up with the what it looks like in Philippines. So global IPv6, 7% of traffic flowing to Google is on IPv6. Large networks in different regions are deploying IPv6. 94% of the world's IPv6 users are actually on 30 of the top ISPs here. And this is the list of organizations in this region that has deployed significant number of IPv6. Tunisia, SoftBank Japan, ChinaNet in different networks. China Research Education. A lot of people are already deploying IPv6. Now, IPv6 adoption in core networks measured by Cisco, and they're basically looking at the global routing table, look at those who allows IPv6 to transit in their networks. The top 20 of those transit providers are all IPv6 enabled. They can handle and transit IPv6 traffic in their network. The top 50 is also close to 100. All the down to top 300 of the top transit AS allows IPv6 to flow from it in network. Only when we look at the whole AS numbers out there, then we see that it's just below the 50% mark. This is sorted by the percentage of websites in each country that enables IPv6. There's only Singapore in this in the Southeast Asia region that is 34% of their websites are IPv6 enabled. So content-wise is also showing a good sign. Now, how about the distribution of IPv6? Looks like the distribution itself is fine. Philippines has got 55/32. So if you really want to know how much is 55/32 in terms of individual IP address, it's that much. 4.3 million trillion. So you've got that already delegated to Philippines. So not a problem at all. But how about traffic? Based on APNIC Labs measurement, it's still like crawling at the bottom. You need to push it up a bit. We'll be here because, surprise, surprise, the top network in Philippines present to us after my talk. The rest are University of Philippines in Diliman and Manila, and DOST still 1.3%, can probably be pushed up a bit, USD. All right, let's look at potential now. So and a lot of people are saying when they talk about internet growth, they talk about mobile. The Philippines has the fastest growing internet population in the world. The smartphone connection growth in Philippines is 75%, which is significantly higher than the Southeast Asia, which averages at 50% growth. Mobile internet adoption is 62% in 2014, which is the third highest in Southeast Asia, and by 2018, we expect that 90% of population will have smartphone. So the mobile subscription is in Philippines is already exceeding the 100%, which is quite similar with other Asian region as well. Like people actually on average have more than one mobile. And I think Philippines is also known as the texting capital of the world. I also heard that Filipinos also in Manila is the selfies capital of the world as well. That's what I've been told. So your mobile sellers subscription is around 113 million. That's where you are compared to other economies, over 100. And so hoping that people from PLDT or Globe would do their part to make mobile broadband increase in Philippines. So in summary, we can see that from population, from Internet of Things, mobile device, rapid economic growth, then Internet will continue to grow in the world as well as in Philippines. IP4 is definitely running out. ARIN has 0.13/8 left, and we expect that sometime this month, if not next month, they will hit the bottom, which means 4 out of the 5 RIRs have run out. So IPv6 is the only answer capable. Again, need to take your part, and let's listen to the next presenters who are working on this area. Thank you very much.
Thanks again, Sanjaya. Our next speaker will present a case study on IPv6. He is the Chief Information Officer Institute. Let's give one applause to Mr. Marco Vandenberg.
That the law about IPv6 in Erie, but mostly about IPv6 from an end user / political point of view. So sorry if I'm not going to be catering for your technical needs. I leave that up to the people that actually know about this stuff. And what I'll do is I'll talk about the view from a slightly higher level. And there might be some controversial issues there. As some of you will notice, I'm from the Netherlands. This is about the most, oops. Doesn't work. Okay. I want to go back a slide. Okay. As some of you will notice from my last name, I'm from the Netherlands. The Netherlands borders Belgium, as you may know, and from a report that I recently saw, Belgium seems to be a hope that the people from the Netherlands make about our neighbors from Belgium. The Belgians tend to view the Dutch people as being very tight with money. The Netherlands tend to think of the people from Belgium as being not so very bright. So you have to view the joke in that particular respect. The joke is that Belgium is going to switch to traffic on right-hand drive, so on the left side of the road, and that they will do so by having the yellow cars go first. I will let that sink in a little bit. Sometimes get the feeling that with the IPv6 transition, we are working on the same mode. And we'll get to that. Let's first talk about IRI. IRI, International Rice Research Institute, we're located about 52 kilometers from here, southwest, in a beautiful place called Los Baños Laguna. I encourage every one of you that if you're tired of Manila traffic to come by, because apart from the weekends when the crowds from Manila come to visit the quiet place in Los Baños, our traffic is pretty decent. We have about a 200-hectare research farm. We concentrate on everything that has to do with rice. And in order to do that, we have a bunch of labs, offices, greenhouses, and we also have a fair amount of network connectivity. And maybe we can have a look at that in the next slide. Oh, wait. First, this is the mandatory corporate slide that I have to show. Otherwise, they won't let me go to Manila. You can view this on the internet. Basically, this is our mission statement, where you can see that we exist to improve the livelihoods of rice consumers and rice producers, and we try to do so also thinking of the sustainability of the environment. So let's go into network mode. This is the picture of our network connectivity. A connection to a commercial internet provider, and we have a connection to, I don't know if you can read this, but this is IRI at QC at Quezon City, Diliman. This is the DOST/ST infrastructure. Both of these connections are currently fiber, 155 megabits per second, and we're actually going to add one from Quezon City to Los Baños, and we're anxiously awaiting that because, as I said, these are both 155 megabits. There's going to be a connection that's 1 gigabit as soon as possible, as soon as a particular internet service provider in the Philippines gets their act together. And I hope they're in the audience. This is the IRI campus. And on the IRI network, we also have residences that also cater. This stands for the University of the Philippines at Los Baños, a very large institute with how many students in UPLB? Sorry? Okay, so we have 1,200 staff, as you can hear. UPLB has some more. We are connected by fiber to UPLB, and we offer transit to our connection to DOST over that fiber optic link. It should be said that the university has their own link. Now, this is getting close to saturation. I was told this morning that was because there was something going on that was rather undesirable. This picture was taken on Friday morning. This should have been nothing because it was a holiday in the Philippines, but there was a distributed denial of service attack going on. So, interesting one. Biotech is an institution also close by. UPOU stands for the Open University of the Philippines, and we also provide connectivity to some agencies of DOST which are connected in multiple ways. So more or less the picture of our networking. We get our IPv6 over this connection. I'll talk about this connection and its IPv6 readiness in a bit. Can we have the next slide, please? The heading of this slide, if you don't understand it, don't worry. There's with a slight bit of cynicism towards people that speak technical. Networking, network address translation, or not. A huge amount of talk in the network world is that there are people that think that we can survive for a long time with the existing IPv4 address space because we can do something called network address translation. And the International Rice Research Institute is operating in a number of countries where there's not just network address translation going on, but there's double, or in some cases, the publicity in those countries around IPv6, the publicity in some countries around IPv6 sometimes reminds me of the Y2K event. Now, most of you probably are too young to remember the Y2K events, consciously at least. But in the year 2000, it was predicted double things would happen, but they still haven't happened. And every time I go to an IPv6 presentation, I see another deadline of some horrible doomsday scenario, but it somehow never happens. Meaning that the urgency gets a bit stale if I continuously see a deadline that passes without things really going wrong. IPv6 blocks, and I'm especially talking about the legacy blocks, but in some particular operator by the name of Microsoft that can't get enough IPv4 addresses to operate its Azure cloud. And nowadays, when you buy a server on Microsoft Azure cloud, you will find that you might get an address that actually was issued by APNIC or by another information provider. I think that IPv4 addresses should not be squandered that way. And if there is to be a use of IPv4 addresses, for example, in Asia or in Africa, by a company like Microsoft or by a company like any other cloud provider that is, I think that those companies should be forced to actually host the infrastructure within that region and not by selling the address space. On your websites that you support IPv6, it's another thing to actually support it at your customer sites. And the excuses that we hear in the previous routers not being ready, old routers being used, are the same excuses that we get. So I think it's about time that those excuses go away and that the people not only talk the talk, but walk the walk. This is because everybody in the IT business should have a fair dose. Capabilities of IPv4 are very interesting for certain network environments. And I'm going to be extremely careful not to mention any countries or other environments where IPv4 may be preferred, especially on an end-user level, because it is easier to control what end users can access. IPv6 offers some amazing opportunities when it's fully used in terms of encryption. You will all have heard that encryption has become an incredibly hot topic at the moment, where some governments do not want their users to properly encrypt their traffic. Can we have the next slide? I would love to see a more clear transition roadmap. Let's have a look at some of the things that I put on this thing. This is the recent status. This was taken yesterday. This is from Hurricane Electric. This is the amount of IPv4 that's still there. I took this picture yesterday. It's a live picture with the countdown going on. You can see there's still a fair amount of IPv4 blocks, or IPv4 addresses being doled out. And what I find alarming, and I've already mentioned it, that if you ask to buy or to lease IPv4, look at the number of hits you get from a simple Google search. There's companies that specialize in leasing and renting and selling IPv4 addresses. In fact, if I calculate how much at the rate that is suggested on one of those websites my organization could make on its legacy Class C blocks. So that is not as much as many of you will have. I started with the example of Belgium and driving on the left versus driving on the right side of the road. This reminds me sometimes about how IPv6 is being implemented in the mainland of Europe. People from the UK will call it the other way around. But, so you'll see that people are urged to drive on the left in English. This means drive on the left in German. And this, with an attempt to block it out, means drive on the right in French. So you can see how 1/3 of the traffic there could potentially be in pretty much dire circumstances if they hit the road. Can we have the next slide, please? Some maybe off-the-wall ideas about IPv6. I think that we should think about IPv6 addresses as real estate. And real estate should be rented out, not sold, not given away. So regulate that amount of IPv4 space that you've got left. Lease it, and lease it at increasingly expensive prices. Stimulate people, give people an incentive to actually move to IPv4 space. Use the that we can use. Only recently have we been able, for example, to use an open source firewall that we consider to be stable enough to handle our network, and that's PfSense. Up to then, we had to use a tweaked version of PfSense, which was not open source, but which was handled by a local software developer, which unfortunately doesn't exist anymore. The same could be said, develop a router appliance that is available so that I don't have to go and buy very expensive IPv6 gear from the usual suppliers. An IPv6 only killer application would be really, really interesting to get. And I'm very happy to hear that Apple is now taking the steps to have its new applications IPv6 vetted, if I may say so. But IPv6 has a number of features beyond its addressing capability that I think lend itself really well for a killer app. And the feature I like a lot is mobile IPv6, where I, in a complete IPv6 world, should be able to carry my device around and keep my IP address between different modes of operation. For example, on my mobile phone, I should be able to go to another network and still have my private network routed over my IPv6 address. Of course, if you lease IPv4 addresses expensively, then I think that it would make sense to lease IPv6 addresses cheaper. Again, to make sure that you get the transition going. The word sustainable was used in some of the previous presentations, and I'm really sorry that that doesn't feature in this mission statement, because I think that in order to get to a sustainable internet situation, we need to regulate. Okay, you must have taken the PDF version of my presentation, because this is supposed to be an animated question mark. Inviting you to ask any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marco.
I am not afraid of any questions, but I have a plane to catch, so that's why I'm going to disappear. And I thank you for inviting us today.
Thank you, Marco. Our next speaker is from the IPv6 Forum, which aims to accelerate the deployment of IPv6 in the Philippines. And let us call on Mr. Medel Ramirez.
Good morning. Nice to be back at DOST-Advanced's activity. Mostly I'm been invited, and I'm glad to share you again with my one of my stints in doing IPv6. Last year when I was in Vietnam, I was able to share my thoughts with our ASEAN neighbors, wherein how to get into more on a due diligence going to IPv6. If there are more services, rather than an IPv4 currently, that's what we're having. So to start with, the work in the V6 since 2003, when I've been in the telecom, I've been working with schools, universities, moving to awareness, public awareness, promotions, and trainings in those years. As I gone by, I was able to be accredited by the Global IPv6 Forum, based in Luxembourg, care of Mr. Latif Ladid, and he was able to support me in all my works doing the IPv6 TEDs. So the next bullet is about let me go through the IPv4 accession and then the Philippine business profile, the care of the Google and APNIC, and what are the Philippine mandates during those times were we able to put up the IPv6 in the country, and the rest are the Philippine business deployment status, and of course we would like to comment on the Philippine side on the B6, and of course moving forward. So before I start with Philippine IPv6 Forum, assisted by the Global V6 Forum in Luxembourg, has put me in place more on how this V6 can move the economy. Actually, it is not me the first one who were able to establish this Philippine V6 Forum. So in general, these are one of the excerpts from the Global V6 Forum, which I also adopted in my organization. The mission is to promote the business forum, dramatically improving the market and user awareness of Philippine IPv6. Wherein, in this vision, the customers doesn't even know what is using, and technically, yes, we do the technicalities, but on the customer's perspective, it is the user experience what is looking at. It is regardless of a V4, it's a V6. It's more of the user experience on how we can improve the life in using and even in your vehicles moving or non-moving. So the vision is really to have a cooperation between countries, between organizations, and between even intercommunities, no, and bring those expertise on the table and let the ball rolls in terms of sharing this information and make the economy grow. So these are some of the milestones that we've been able to carry out. This is, of course, with the assistance of the DOST-ASTI, which is almost there to really promote awareness and be able to really aspire developers and even operators. So from top to bottom, we've already conducted the first World IPv6 Forum. The National IPv6 Forum encouraging the migration to IPv6, which is from the Defunct Commission on ICT, and next level of technology. And it is really, for now, yes, it's working, but if you're going to a more high definition of working in a highly environment like now today, we're just using IPv4 as a basic, no? Browsing, email. But when you go to Internet of Things, but not even in Internet of Things, Internet of Everything, where you do stitch the process, the people, to move into in a different, anytime, anywhere, any device that he could access his email, browse into, watch movies at any time, anywhere. So it's really moving into this. It's just a really stopgap, no? And right now, we as a telco, we're carrying more problems right now. Why? Because we try to move from a more an advanced evolution, having more highly experienced activity in the internet, no? So today is really a good activity on how we're going to do parallel with the IPv6. But it should not be gone too far or even go into the CGNAT. For me, there's no such thing as CGNAT because every time I got some problem with my customer to the next level of the region, I get into a conflict. So let us say this is not a CGNAT, but of course a large-scale NAT. So what I'm getting into is that there are a lot of programs, awareness, promotions, trainings that has been done by the government to push into this type of technology in IB4. So might as well, the ISP is looking forward now to more applications, services, wherein you do not see V6 at all. There's no such thing as V6 at all when you say about customer experience. He is trying to look into what's in it for me. For me as a consumer, I should be accessing anytime, anywhere, any device. No? So with this executive order, this is a good mark wherein the government trying to push the ISP and the local telco to move into the next generation of how these services and application will go up and improve our economy. So in terms of the national development, the DOST again, has already created since what? PhOpenIX, Bani, we've started PhOpenIX since? 2007. And this is already IPv6. Okay? So, President, same thing, National Research Education, this is the NREN of the national government for the National Research and Education, which has been, manned by the DOST as well. So in terms of so as was presented by the ERI speaker, this already been a B6 LAN, their campus, and even foreign affairs and other. These are some of the lists that has been adapting to the B6 in terms of the following the Executive Order 893. So how about in the ISP deployment? We as a telco, I'm also wearing a telco hat and IPv6 hat. So as a telco, group we're already. So in terms of the other competition, they're already deploying it. But the most important thing here is that happened to the Philippines, that it has an IPv6 testing in the country. And that is located in Cebu. And it is sad to say, if we want to see the outlook in general of the IPv6 that was being shown by Sanjay, this is only just a repeat of what was happening. So for the Philippines, we've only adopted the 0.09%. But the thing is, we're truly pushing hard for it. The fact that the government has already mandated for it. So as you can see here, the Malaysian adoption 7%, the highest is the one that was presented again by Sanjay, which is a little bit really very low from the year that we take off from the World IPv6 Day, and now today, June is only moving at that slow. So, what are the hurdles and even the drivers that pushes us back or pushes us forward? So, what I've seen is actually, again, as a telco, we've been actually opening our doors for devices that we see fit the V6 services and applications. Even technology adoptions, the customers be done on the internet. It is not today Internet of Things, but even it will be Internet of everything. It will not be just what you're wearing, what you're seeing. It's that people, process will be integrated. Now they're coming in between IoT and IoE. They're going to be coming in a fog computing technology. So even the cloud today is very, very basic. Everything has to go to the cloud, but there are some regulatory that has to be taken care of, in terms of moving your services application in the cloud. So there's still a regulatory that has to be in place in order for us to really explore on the cloud business. So again, Sanjay has already filled us up with all of the statistics that comes from the Philippines. Now let's take a closer look on the other side of the fence, our neighbors, ASEAN neighbors. Yes, it's true in all of the ASEAN neighbors have the support and backing up the government, even even international community. So there have been a lot of legislation, national policies, guidelines implementing rules and regulations have already been in place. Collaboration has been taking place, partnerships been taking place between the public and the private sectors in moving application services that will really improve our economy. So awareness program, as ASTI is doing right now, promotions and training. So they're all in place, same as what they're doing right now. But as you see on this graph, Singapore as one of as I see, today they're moving up to 4.05 compared to the last year, which is a little bit low, which is 2 point something. And as you see, there's a high rise in the usage in terms of the preference of the ASN. There was an event that was taken from the IDA in what you call this, in discovering a lot of applications that has to go to the internet. So that's what there is a peak in that particular year of demand. So how about Japan? Japan also is keeping rising and garnering at 9.66 in terms of the preference on the ASN. So Laos, same thing, June 2015, but just like us, moving a little. Malaysia, which is the highest point, same as another country that was presented, and Thailand and Vietnam. If I can still share, I want to share with you when I was in Vietnam last year, March to give a talk about on how it's going to be moving an V6 to the country and improve the economy. Is that it was so funny that Vietnam owns the infrastructure, and yet they were able to tell, okay, I own the infrastructure, so I do have the decision, but what is happening? What's happening? Sign. More resellers about B6, B4 services and applications. That was together when I was with Sunny at the time. He was with me when we went in Vietnam, and we've been trying to really give them more information how to push up the B4 services and application. So with China, this is very, very supportive of the government. China Telecom, China Unicom, China Mobile, all of them are really, really trying to really make IPv6 as the number one, because China's really as big as what? More than us as country, no? So there's really a deep up and down, but in general, they're all V6, no? That is what we're really trying to absorb from them, how do we able to do services and applications in the V6. This we would like to learn from them. So in terms of the AS announcement on the prefix, no? So as you can see, the Philippines is 17 Out of 199 AS, we've got only 17 that's being announced. In comparison with China, no, as of that writing, 46 out of 296 AS. But as you can see, all of these things is that we do have some improvement in terms of the developing the countries in terms of the basics technology. No? So all of us is really on the rise of important thing. For us, technical really is it how we're going to design the network, but at the end result is how we're going to translate it into a customer experience. So anytime, anywhere, any device. That is the more important thing that we should take a look at it. No? So moving forward, there's some of the lists that I've shown also when I was in Vietnam and trying to give them the best I can. Is that the worldwide exchange is more important in exchanging the technical knowledge and know-how, like what Sanjay and APNIC group is now doing to the Philippines, and I'm sure they're going to bring it all also to Jakarta, no, and same ASEAN region. So formulation of joint interworking team. Let me share with you is that in my other hat as a telco, I'm assigned to attend the lower and the upper house hearing. The thing is that at the table, no one knows about what. They're trying to measure each telco about the speed because, as you know, the Philippines is one of the worst internet index. But as you can see, no, just please take a look on how they were able to collect the samples. The sample doesn't really consist of how many tests being done, so that's why they were able to get this much, no? I have a technical guy inside on how to measure even how the telco business work. All I know is that, okay, this is the implementing rules and regulations, you follow it. But the point is that they should have a technical working team for them to be able to understand what are these bills is all about, no, what are this telco is going through, because the internet business or the broadband business in the Philippines is a value-added service. It's not yet being regulated under the Public Act 7925. But unlike in the US, FCC is now, through Obama's government, would like to have this type of service to be regulated. They call it, this called Title II. So everybody in the telco in the US is now making a class suit against the government for it to be able to really understand what? Stop throttling, stop premium services, if you can, no, it's going to be an all equal. But in the Philippines, I don't know if we could make this up because there are a lot of factors that we will be able to really affect the quality of service in terms of the mobile service, no? So there is a really need in the government to have a technical working group to be implemented before they go into the telco. So that's why I put this as a joint technical working team. And lastly is that national government may intensify intensify usage of IPv6 through incentives. No, maybe they could align or even coordinate with some of the business from the telco wherein we could really move fast more than what we could in the V4 business on how we could get more on the specific infrastructure to implement a good customer experience, not on IPv4 and not on IPv6. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Medel. The floor is open if you have questions. If there are no questions, we can initially proceed with our coffee break. And after 30 minutes, we'll resume with the PhNOG session. Thank you.
Camera pa yun. Pwede mo get tayo ng ano? Network yun. Pwede mag-register ng business. Register tayo ng business. Walang gusto na.
Good morning. We'll be starting the session in 2 minutes. Session starts in 1 minute. We invite everybody to please settle down. We'll be starting the session. Good morning again. To start off our session, we call on the VP of Policy for Internet Society Philippines, Mr. Winthrop Yu.
Thank you, Achi. And welcome everyone to this meeting of PhNOG and APNIC. Glad to see quite a number of people here. And I hope you've had a refreshing break. Now, there are several organizations that have to do with the internet. APNIC is one of them. They're a regional internet registry. They primarily, you can think of this as they do the numbers, the IP addresses for the region, for Asia Pacific. There are others such as ISOC and ICANN. I represent the Philippine chapter of the Internet Society. ISOC is also a technical organization. And it was actually rejuvenated or restarted in 2009 with the help of APNIC. In other words, what I'm trying to say is even prior to 2009, of all the organizations, the so-called I-Star orgs that have to do with the internet, the one with the most persistent or in-depth presence in the Philippines has always been APNIC. Now, we're also happy that APNIC has brought several meetings, including this one, to the Philippines. Apricot in 2009 was where the Philippine chapter of the Internet Society was rejuvenated. APNIC also conducts trainings, which, sorry to say, the Internet Society does not. Okay. Now, our chapter, the Philippine chapter of the Internet Society, also in a way represents another I-Star org, ICANN, because the Philippine chapter of the Internet Society is also an at-large structure of ICANN at large. Now, we'd like really to see more groupings and more involvement by internet organizations here in the Philippines. For the Philippine chapter of the Internet Society, the ISOC itself does activities on three roughly broad fronts. One is technology. After all, it's a technical organization. The other things that the Internet Society does are policy and development. In fact, ISOC, the Philippine chapter, we've been more focused on policy since about 2012 rather than technology. Now, earlier, DG Paul Wilson also mentioned policy, and you might be wondering, well, what does a technical organization have to do with policy? And I'd like to point out that, of course, the internet being so pervasive, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. No? There are certain things, there are certain environments that the internet survives in or even thrives. What does the Philippine chapter of the Internet Society actually want to emphasize? Well, we want to emphasize the way the internet has developed over the past 20 plus years. There are certain characteristics of this evolution, this dynamic evolution that has brought us so many benefits in the form of the internet. These characteristics of internet development include, number one, your standards are consensual. There is no standards body up above that dictates internet standards. Now, it's up to you, even individual network engineers, network operators, to decide whether you want to adopt a certain standard or not. Earlier today, we see, for example, there is relatively slow adoption of IPv6. The other point is that in order to encourage further evolution and development of the internet, then we have to allow permissionless innovation. That is, even if you have a network engineer, he may even in fact be a college student, no, or an intern, but if he has a good idea about an internet protocol or standard, in organizations such as the Internet Engineering Task Force or APNIC, for example. The other point is there is no centralized body. You will notice I mentioned APNIC, I mentioned Internet Society, I mentioned ICANN. There is no overall head or chief of all these bodies that have to do with the development and the day-to-day running of the internet. Instead, it's a distributed governance structure. In the same way that the internet itself is a distributed network, governance of the internet is likewise also distributed. There is no centralized regulatory commandatura that gives orders. The processes, again mentioned by DG Paul Wilson earlier, are preferably bottom-up. What do we mean? In other words, the ideas come from ordinary people, ordinary engineers, even non-engineers. You know? And anyone can actually contribute. A lot of the work, for example, for the Internet Engineering Task Force, the IATF, is done on mailing lists. That may seem boring to you, but the point is anyone can join a mailing list. Anyone can join a working group. No? It's not exclusive to people who are necessarily members of a certain organization. Finally, we really try, when we engage, even ISOC's Philippine chapter, to engage with as many stakeholders as possible. We do not limit ourselves to the technical community. The Philippine chapter of ISOC, for example, interfaces and engages with civil society organizations. Okay. Now, for personal development, I really appreciate the rejuvenation of PhNOG, and I hope more network engineers and operators will join us at our next meeting. The reason is the internet is developing so quickly that it's really an advantage, not only to you personally, personal development, but also for your organizations, the ones you work for, and even for the country as whole, when you interface and engage with your fellow engineers and internet people from the global internet community. So I'm hoping to see more activities like this. And the activities need not be held in the Philippines. People have traveled to APRICOT meetings and APAN meetings on fellowships. So I encourage more of you, especially network operators and engineers, to apply. So you get to meet your peers from around the region, if not the world. The Internet Society also has fellowships, both to the IETF, the Internet Engineering Task Force, and we have a special program that's separate from that. We have several fellowships, but there's one in particular we call the NGL, or Next Generation Leaders Program, that is open to anyone between the ages of 20 or 40. That's one of the rare instances when we discriminate, for age, because it is a Next Generation Leaders Program. The NGL program affords access not only to the IETF, but there that we hope more of you will apply for. There's also ICANN, and you might be wondering, some of you may or may not be very interested in domain names. Okay. But I'm sure every network engineer is very interested in security. So aside from the security considerations, for example, that are being taken up by APNIC, ICANN also has a security and stability working groups, advisory councils. And the good thing about a lot of these meetings is that there are also webinars online. In other words, you don't have to travel abroad to talk to your peers in the industry. I sat in on a very interesting webinar on security and stability just 2 nights ago from ICANN. So there are a lot of possibilities here, and I hope more network engineers will take advantage of these possibilities. After all, if the internet is pervasive and global, then it's good for you also to sort of come out of your knocks and actually engage with more people around you. Okay. Thank you all for coming, and I'll turn us back now to our wonderful.
Okay. Our next speaker is the Director of Network Strategy and Interconnection for Limelight Networks, and also an Executive Council member of APNIC. Let us welcome Mr. Gaurav Upadhyaya.
Works? Okay. It's a bad idea to put it here. Okay. Good. Still good morning. Next 5 minutes. So good morning, everyone. Thank you, Chairman Vincent. So I'd like to start with a story about how I know. I was saying, "Dear Vincent." And he replied back to me saying, "Only my mother calls me Vincent." So Winthrop, don't call him Vincent, call him Achi. But, that's the thing about NOGs, is I met Achi probably at an APRICOT, or if not at one of the other events that we go to. And I've, known him for so many years now that sometimes I forget that his name is Vincent. And I have to, when I search for his email, I need to search for Vincent and not Achi. And, so I'm Gaurav. I've been a long-time regular NOG participant all over the world. Today I'm going to talk mostly about NOGs. I'm not going to talk about my work, which is related. But to give you some context, I put a big slide about myself here, just so that it gives some context on why I'm talking about this. Generally, I don't do this. As Achi said, I'm yeah, if you have anything to talk about AS22822, find me at lunch or later today or tomorrow. I also am the founder of PhNOG, the South Asian Network Operators Group, which works in my home area, Nepal, and around that region, Nepal, India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Bhutan, Pakistan, and so on. I served on the APNIC board for 10 years between 2004 to 2014. And for those of you who, I'll talk about this later on, but APNIC is the conference, API is the body that runs the conference. So just to make it clear, I was on the APIA board because APNIC does not have a board. I was chairman of the board, and when APNIC was in Manila, I was actually chairing APIA, and it was good to be here. I've been on the APNIC PhNOG, XANOG, PACNOG, NGNOG, OSNOG, MyNOG, SGNOG, well, a lot of them. And I spoke at PhNOG. So this is not my first time speaking at PhNOG. The last time I spoke at PhNOG was a long time ago. And I'll come back to that later. So what are NOGs? NOG, the full form is Network Operators Group. It's basically a forum. It is not a conference. It's not a seminar. It generally is where, and that could be about anything. I mean, it's not, we are quite used to going to events where we go there, you listen to a speaker, and then walk away. Generally, NOGs are not supposed to be that. I mean, people still do that, go to a conference and go home. But NOGs are generally built around the sense that you talk to each other rather than just listening to someone speak on the front. I picked out what we define in PhNOG as, I wrote that myself, so it's an experience within and with the rest of the world. But the work I do on my day job on a daily basis might be very different than what you guys have to deal with local problems, right? So a lot of times, if I'm in the Philippines, I'll be watching very carefully about the state of ASC and AAG, and on a slightly regional scale, you can go and share experience about how reliable each of these cable systems are. But then, if I go to the US or Europe, they are not really concerned about something like SJC, which is entirely an intra-Asia cable, right? So the whole point there is to talk locally and then slightly regionally, so that you can share experiences, right? So history of NOG. NANOG, the North American Network Operators Group, is probably the oldest NOG. But in 1994, basically they converted themselves and started calling them NANOG, because before they to people who, and in 94, they brought on the participation and turned themselves into NANOG. So that still is the oldest. RIPE. RIPE is a community of mainly Europeans in that region. RIPE NCC is the counterpart of APNIC in the European and Middle Eastern region. The RIPE there is community. The RIPE NCC is the secretariat. RIPE NCC is existing network operators based in Europe, mainly people in Netherlands, Belgium, UK, and Scandinavia got together and series of regular meetings to share experience and carry out technical coordination work, right? And then that went on, and in '92. The RIPE NCC was officially formed. And in 94, APNIC was actually officially registered. So that is what happened in Europe. So these two are the oldest form of thing. That's why a lot of people say, which is the European NOG? The European NOG does not have a NOG tag at the end of the name. It's basically the RIPE community. That is the European equivalent of NANOG, right? Whereas NANOG is the North American one. Then we have APNIC in Asia. I can tell the full form of APNIC because I was on the board for 10 years. I don't expect you to do that, but its full form is Asia Pacific Regional Internet Conference on Operational Technologies. I don't know who came up with that, but it is stuck. It is quite common, in the APNIC program committee to get submissions from agricultural scientists now and then because they did some research on APNICs. The first APNIC was in '96 in Singapore, apparently around 65 to 70 people. And '97 was Hong Kong. Chi Hu was one of the organizers. He's sitting over there. And then actually I put that in there. The third apricot in 98 was in Makati at the, I don't know which hotel it was. Anyone was there in 98? See who was there. So yeah, apricot was here a long time ago. And then there was a big gap, almost 10 years, before we got apricot back into Manila in 2009. It was at the Novotel somewhere over there. I think it's called something else now, right? Sofitel. Oh, okay, so they just changed the name. Apricot is actually not just a simple NOG. It has become a lot more bigger than a NOG. The underlying principle is same. You go to Apricot to meet people and talk about different things. Meet there. They hold their meetings there. Apricot is also one of the 2 annual APNIC members meeting. So APNIC holds 2 members meeting every year. The next one is in Jakarta. The second one or the first one of the year is always held at Apricot, right? Like since the very beginning. First forum within Apricot, which is the Association of the Internet Exchanges in the region. They also have their meeting there. There is a dedicated 2 days of peering forum, like 1 day plus 1 day. The Asia Pacific IPv6 Task Force has a meeting there. And, I can't keep track of who is meeting at Apricot because ISOC has their regional meetings there. ICANN does their own thing. So basically, Apricot has become where a lot of organizations do their own meeting around that event. So it tends to be really big, 600 to 800 people, and also tends to be almost 2 weeks because the first week is generally workshops, which is and conference, and then in between there is a gap. So Apricot is quite big. So you have to be careful when you go to Apricot is you're not going for the 14 days or 12 days. Generally you go for one part of it and so on. So that is Apricot. Apricot, we like to call it the NOG of the NOGs almost for the Asia Pac region. We wish everybody could go to Apricot, but I don't think even Apricot can handle if everyone or all the people who attend these NOGs go to Apricot, right? And and it is only once a year. So apart from Apricot, not everybody can go to Apricot. And Apricot, as I said, and as Paul was telling earlier, APAC region, I just listed the ones in APAC. There are 2 regional NOGs. One is PhNOG, which is in South Asia that I started, and the other one is called PhNOG, which is the Pacific Islands. Things in and around Fiji, New Zealand, Tuvalu, Cook Island, Guam, all those islands on the Pacific. And PhNOG is the regional one which covers India, Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and those guys. But apart from that, try to put it more like chronologically about what they started. JANOG, probably the oldest one, 97. Maimura-san was here earlier. He was one of the founders. Then NZNOG started as a mailing list in 98. They had their first meeting in 2002 in Auckland. Then we had PhNOG, 2003. It's been almost 12 years since we started that. PhNOG started in 2005. Actually, there was a pre-PhNOG in 2004, which also was the APNIC meeting in Fiji. So you can see, then there is PhNOG. I remember coming to Manila, and 500 meters from here, there is the EDSA Shangri-La, where I actually did a presentation at the first PhNOG meeting. And then nothing happened after that. So hopefully this time we'll stick out for longer. That meeting was done with APAN. ASTI was hosting APAN, and I think they allocated half a day to get operators together and do it. But then, after that, there's been a lot of NOGs. Like there's Singapore NOG, and then if Singapore does something, Malaysians have to do it, so they set up my NOG. And Hong Kong NOG followed after that. And then last year, BD NOG, ID NOG. It's just become 16 or 17 of those. The CN NOG, TW NOG, and KR NOG, they happen, but their websites are completely in languages I can't read. So I don't have enough info on that. And all of these have, at least some form of mailing list. They have conferences and meetings. SKNOG is a lot informal. They have SKNOG 1 and then .1 and .2, and then they have SKNOG 2, which basically means they have one or two big meetings, and there are a lot of smaller, ongoing kind of meeting, which is a lot less formal and can be done every couple of months, and so on. So how do NOG start? Most NOG start out as some informal gathering, mailing list, and so on, eventually forming a real conference. A lot of times they meet on the sidelines of something else, and everybody meets and says, why do we need to go to this Unix people conference? Let's set up our own network people conference. And then they decided we need a separate list for the networking people. And then, it keeps growing. Different places have different drivers. I call it either there is an individual itch. Somebody is thinking, we need to do something. Or some group of people, like in Hong Kong, I think it is a collective itch of people who go to Apricot on a very regular basis, missing not having a HKNOG. Right? In some other places, like PhNOG was likely an individual itch that pushes people to do something. And sometimes something else gets transformed or outgrows. I can't think of anything in Asia Pac that, but the thing is, PhNOG start to do something locally because this is good. We get the training, it's really good, we can, and that's how PhNOG got started, as part of SANOG and then, their own. A lot of times, Apricot kickstarts thing. PhNOG, that we didn't have enough people from the reason when it is so easy to fly to Bangkok from all those countries. So a couple of us, and I said, we'll do a SANOG in Kathmandu next year. And that's how we started SANOG, was, let's get people to come because, if people are not even flying 3 hours to Bangkok from South Asia, there might be other issues, like, people might not have passports, for example, or the fares might still be expensive. He was complaining with Achi saying, I don't want to do this NOG presentation because I want to talk something operational. Right? And even send him some offers saying, can I talk about this? Can I talk about it? He said, no, this is the first PhNOG. Let's talk about a NOG. But mostly it is operational presentation and best practices. Right? Best practices by people who are more experienced, operational presentations by people who are willing to share and who have done something in recent times. And a lot of times, local internet exchanges take leadership in organizing the local NOGs. A lot of times. That is what I've seen, because the internet exchanges sort of are the more neutral because everybody is connected and everybody has links there. And you have people in 2 competing companies or 3 competing companies don't really talk to each other. Actually, they talk at the CEO level or at really high level because they are all lobbying against the government or for the government or something. But they try to keep the engineers out of that discussion. Right? I don't know why that happens. And, NOGs basically take that out because at the engineering level, you need to talk. Most of the time when there is a problem, these guys are not going to be able to solve it. Right? The problem solving is going to happen at a lower level, at more operational level. And that's where you build contacts and relationships so that, when you have a problem, you don't have to go through big chain of cycle and maybe through legal departments just to fix a really small problem. For example, hey, your email is bouncing, for example. That might be a very simple thing to say and get it fixed. Comparing vendors, that is another very good one. A lot of times when you're just talking to the vendor by yourself, you don't really know what they're telling you works or doesn't work. There might be other people in the room who have already used the vendor or used the service so that you know exactly, this is a good guy, this is not a good guy. Right? That is very important. Right? Because you can go and say, I'll not go about equipment vendors, but transit providers or subsea cable providers. Who has the best fault reporting? Who is cheap but they don't have any support at all? Those kind of things you don't really get to know. And it will not happen because somebody is coming up on the stage and telling that to you. It is going to happen informally, saying, hey, what do you think of this provider? And no, they suck. Right? Oh, they're really good. I know this, and this guy there, and he'll solve all my problem. Right? Something like that. Job prospecting. It used to be very common at NANOG for people to sit down and write software for routers. I don't think that happens anymore. People still hack around codes and things like that, but that is getting a little bit less. But testing happens still quite a bit. Job prospecting is another one. There is 2 sides to it. Companies think, if I send him there, then they'll find a better job and go away. But if somebody is willing to leave, they don't have a place in your own organization. That's how we think it. Send someone to the NOG, they'll leave if they are willing to leave, no matter what you do, right? So that is the way. But it is also good to know who is hiring. Somebody offered me the job at a NANOG, saying, hey, Gaurav, we need someone in Asia to look after stuff. You want to join us? I was like, okay, let's talk about it. And that's how it went forward. And my job interview happened at an Apricot after that, right? So it happens. Influencing decisions, you learn something, you go back, you influence things on what can be done. And the key thing there is keep the internet functioning. Right? That is the key thing for all of us, is to keep the network running. Right? That is our primary objective. Right? You don't want the network to fall down. And and at that point you are not worried about whether somebody is a competitor or something like that, because at the end of the day it's the same thing. Right? You're not going to tell them passwords or anything. You're just going to say, hey, how do you fix this particular specific problem? Right? So governance structures of NOG. I added this because PhNOG is new, and probably talk about this. It generally evolves over time. Right? As I said, the NOG starts out as an informal gathering. Somebody says, oh, I'll do this. Somebody says, I'll do this. And then there'll be 3 or 4 people who will do most of the work in the beginning. Then there is other people like volunteers or other organizations that will step in and say, hey, let's help you with some of this logistics stuff. Then generally one committee is formed. Like with SANOG, we formed a committee called Core Committee, which was basically did everything. Managed the program, signed, negotiated. Everything gets done by the same group. And then as it progresses, then you generally start getting more committees. Right? Then what happens is, when you have 50, 60, 70 people, it's easy. But when you start having 100, 200 people, then you need a group of people who are dealing primarily with logistics. Right? And then you need a group of people who are primarily dealing with the content of the event. Right? And so you get split into program committee and the logistics committee. In some places, that organization thing is outsourced to a company. Like in case of, I can't say about JANOG, but let me think. I can't think offhand, but some NOG, like the UK NOG, the UK one, they basically outsourced the entire organizational part of it, hotel negotiation, wireless, blah, blah, to a event management company that runs the whole thing. So the people running the program are just focusing on the program. There are different ways of doing it. Ultimately, a more formal structure is needed if money started to get collected. That is the key point. Most of the times, NOG tend to think that they need a formal structure when they start collecting money. Because when you start collecting money, you need somewhere to house it. And in most places, if you house it with someone else, there's tax implications and things like that, right? And that's where, maybe after 4, 5, 6 years operations, the NOGs will generally get formalized in some form. Or maybe not. I'll show you why. But that is the only point when, somebody will say, oh, we need to go and register this somewhere. Because now we are getting more visibility. People are saying, what is your legal status? How do I give money? Or what is your sponsorship? And things like that. But until you are handling a lot of money, it generally remains very, very flexible. Some examples. NANOG up to 2005 was run by Merit, who was one of the founders. Merit runs the Michigan area academic networks. But now it is registered as a not-for-profit U.S. organization. And it has a board, and it has members, and elections, and everything. Now, my boss is on the board of NANOG. So, I'll come back to that reason. I'll come back and explain that why. But in Apricot, the legal umbrella is provided by APIA. Right? So all the contract signing, all the MOE signing, all the money collecting, bank account is all handled by APIA. JANOG is run by the JANOG committee. And for every JANOG committee, I think they cycle some members, and the chair remains there. SANOG is actually not incorporated anywhere yet, right? And uses APIA to manage funds. So this was when I was still on the APIA board. We realized that SANOG in the region is very difficult to move money around in that region, right? And we are a regional NOG. So if I set up a SANOG in Nepal, it's very impossible for me to receive sponsorship money and send it out to some other country. So we decided the main problem we are trying to address is handling money. So I was on the APIA board. We talked with the other board members and say APIA should support NOGs. So the SANOG money is actually handled by APIA. That also gives accountability to SANOG because it's a third party handling independently and auditing and everything like that. NZNOG set up a trust. They call it the NZNOG Trust because they ran into the same problem. Internet NZ, one of the local organizations, was handling their money, but they started having too much money, at which point the tax people are like, why do we have so much money here? So they had to go and set it up. OSNOG is interesting. They set up a company even before they started. And that's why I say they are so expensive that, most expensive NOG in the world is just OSNOG. Then there is SGNOG, MyNOG, IDNOG. None of these are incorporated. They all use APIA to actually manage the event. Molly is somewhere around here. I don't see her right now. But Molly helps them organize the event, and the sponsorship money goes into APIA, and APIA will pay the vendors. And that makes it simple for the guys because then they don't have to think about where do I keep the money. Right? That generally starts having a big problem with NOGs because when you collect the money, then suddenly people say, well, how do we manage this? Right? Because suddenly you are accountable and you can't really, use the money in the pocket. In AP region, APIA helps to foster formation and operations of NOG. Basically supports them by providing bank account information, even seed funding. APIA provided seed funding to MyNOG, and they were able to pay it back 100%. Same thing with, I think, SGNOG. The first SGNOG, we provided seed funding to host the first one because you have to go into a hotel, you have to pay a deposit, right? And things like that. So, API has helped with that. So what is important with NOGs? Local participation. I can't emphasize that enough, right? I mean, it is okay not to have a single foreigner or single international speaker. The key thing is to have local participation, right? That is where the focus should be. Focus on operational content, right? So more presentation from operators rather than vendors, right? I'm very clear about that because it's easy to get vendors to talk. They have people stand by. They have 40 people sitting there making slides. You ask someone, they'll immediately say, yeah, fine. Especially when you go and ask for sponsorship, they'll say, yeah, okay, but I need a speaker. And that is a really, really wrong way to deal with the NOG. Because, I've had this case in SANOG 3 where somehow one of the vendors ended up putting a sales guy on the stage. And somebody on the floor went and said, what you're talking is rubbish, now get off the stage. That actually happened in an event in India, of all places, where people tend to be a bit shy. So, when it happens, so try not to get, and talk about experience and deployments. Talk about advanced research or current issues. So how many of you heard about this TMNet leaking routes to level 3 yesterday or last week? Anyone? Be okay. I mean, I don't think this site, is this being recorded or something? I don't know. But those are the current issues that we want to talk about, right? And that would be something we should be talking about during the break or lunch or whatever it is. What actually might have happened? Who screwed up, right? Who was at fault? Or what should be done to prevent something like that? And then it's very important to have time and opportunity to network and drink together, right? That's why I said, as APNIC, we're sponsoring the drinks tonight. Please come because that is one of the main things with the NOG, is you be able to talk informally and talk to each other and share experiences without being in a very formal structure or setting, right? How to collaborate internationally. So once you have the local thing, local speakers, API help with organization. They can help with getting workshops and experience sharing. APNIC, ISOC, ICANN, all of these organizations will help with resources. Sometimes they provide sponsorship, which is common with ICANN. They also provide speakers, they provide experts, they provide trainers. All these organizations will support in one way or other, right? Other NOG leaders will be really excited to present and share experiences. So if you go and ask any of those 16 NOGs I listed, people there will be really happy to come and talk about their own experiences, right? So for a local NOG, look for interesting talk on bigger NOGs and invite the speaker. So that is one thing that we do is for SANOG, a lot of times I'm scanning through the NANOG or the RIPE or Apricot speaker list and saying, okay, this is interesting. Now let's try to get those speakers to come. Right? Not everybody will come, but you'll get one or two. Right? And that content is fine because it is being spoken at Apricot and maybe 5 people from the entire SANOG community is attending that particular Apricot. Right? So it is fine. I mean, as I present at a lot of NOGs, and I have a 3-month cycle. Every 3 months, I'm doing the same presentation everywhere. So if you ask me in quarter one, I have a quarter one presentation. And any NOG I go to, I'm just doing the same one. Right? So it is okay. Now, do not. I have 1 minute left, but a few more minutes than that. Have too many presentations. And this is something that tends to happen in Southeast Asia a lot because you want to have too many speakers. And so you cram them together. And in the end of the day, you have a really short break and not enough time to talk to each other. And no Q&A. That is another problem. So it doesn't give time for discussion and becomes boring. Right? Because you are just trying to satisfy a bunch of people. So it is okay not to have too many presentations. Right? And that takes a lot of effort to convince people that that is what it is you can reject talks and say, we'll do it next time. Right? Have too many non-operators presenting. That is another one. When, a lot of times that generally is code for vendors. When you have vendors presenting too many things, then, it can get really boring because they are talking about something completely irrelevant to your day-to-day work. Right? You want to avoid that. It is okay to have vendors come and present, right? Especially hardware or anyone, because they also have people who run networks. Right? And in those cases, you want to get people from, say, Cisco or Juniper or Brocade or whoever who know the network. They have been operator experience and things like that and can talk sensibly instead of taking some marketing slides and just going on. And that for that one, other NOGs can help you because all the NOGs have their contacts. So at Apricot, we get a lot of speakers from everyone. Right? How do we get that? Is we know people who can do that job. So we tell the sales guy, sponsorship guy, fine, give us the money. We'll find a speaker from your company to come and speak. Right? That is how it generally works for PhNOG. Yeah, give the money. We'll make sure there is a speaker from your company come and talk. Because you guys do, right? When SKNOG is hosted in a meeting, but I think the net cost per person is really low, which means the entire event budget is really, really low. Right? PhNOG is the same thing. We try to not do it at 5-star hotels. Because as soon as you go 5-star, the cost is really high and you don't really get anything out of it. Right? You try to do it as a more suitable venues where the cost is manageable. That is another key thing. The key thing is to make it feasible for engineers and technicians to come even if the company is not paying the fee or not, If it is low enough, then, people will say, I'll pay for it and just go. Don't need to ask the manager or anything like that. Because most of the time, if you are processing it internally in the company to get money to go to an event, then it becomes a big, thing about who gets to go and who approves it and all of sorts of like that. You want to get to a point where people will say, yeah, whatever, take half day off and go there, or take 1 day off, or somebody, manager can just sign it off without thinking about it too much. Right? You want to get to that level. So what else? Try to announce the dates well in advance. That is another key thing, especially if you want international audience and attendance and speaker. Because people have to make travel arrangements. It's not easy, People have to make travel approvals and so on. So that is one key thing. So that's what SKNOG is doing, is they keep on organizing small events, but the big event dates are published well in advance, right? So that people who want to go there internationally can do that. Doing the meetings closer to the other big events help with speakers. So last week there was IDNOG, which happened to happen just after Communication in Singapore, right? And so doing events immediately after the APNIC meeting or around Apricot or just after Apricot or some of those things, actually, like for the Philippines, I think doing something around ACC might be very useful because a lot of people have reasons to go to ACC, which means that some of them will come to Manila or even do PhNOG in Cebu, for example. Then you'll get a lot of speakers very quickly. Because suddenly if I see, PhNOG and ACC, I don't go to ACC. But if PhNOG is there, I'm like, yeah, let's go. 3 hours flight, get it done. So a lot of times it helps people to justify budgets and things like that to come through. And you get better speakers also. Document, take pictures, use social media, do all sorts of things, take selfies, for example. I would especially suggest at Apricot, there is a evening meeting BOF where you get drink beer and everything in the room called the NOG BOF, where all the NOG people gather together and talk about their NOG. So attend that because that is really useful. I listed a bunch of other ones. You can go through it. These are other regional NOGs. APNIC is a big one. LACNOG is in Latin America. MENOG. There is also ENOG, which is the Eurasian NOG. CNOG is the Southeastern European NOG. Carib NOG had their first meeting 2 weeks ago, which is the NOG in the Caribbean. NOD-NOG started in 2002, but it died, and now it is kind of the NetNod members meeting is the NOD-NOG. Funny thing is the same guy. The guy who started NOD-NOG is now the CEO of NetNod. So, as I said, that is the personal itch. He's always wanted to do something in that region, but, tried once, failed, but now he's the CEO of a very successful company. It's like, now we're going to do it again, but more organized. There's lots of country NOGs. Now, the last thing that I said earlier, so what is it in for the company? What is there? Why am I coming here? Why am I allowed to come here? And why is my boss on the NANOG board? Right? Basically, we all work on the internet. What is good for the internet is good for the company. That's how we look at it. If something bad happens on the internet, it's bad for the business. It's bad for the internet. So companies should look at it that way. That's how we look at it. That's how it is like our staff get to go to NOGs or wherever they want under some reasonable basis, and we are allowed to contribute time to these things, because if the internet stops working or there is a major break, it hampers a big part of our core business, right? And that is how the engineers and everybody should probably start looking at it. These are the hot topics. Currently, that is another thing. Nothing gets boring at NOGs. There is always something interesting. I mean, BGP IPv4 routing, it certainly is very exciting this week because everybody is talking about it. We thought 20 years ago, was still very relevant. So you get all the buzzwords like SDN, which someone likes to say it still does nothing. There's NFB, which I thought was virtualization, and we solved that many, many years ago. But there's the cloud. But there's buzzwords. You can always have that, but mostly NOGs are focused more on things that are in network operations. Do I still have time for Q&A?
Questions?
Come and ask me at least one question. Otherwise, you are not at a NOG.
I think you're here the whole day anyway, so perhaps the drinking part will help.
Okay. So you can also ask me things about anything else. IX, peering, capacity, V6, DNSSEC, APNIC-related questions, address policies, BGP Anycast, and so on and so forth. These are the topics I really like to talk about, more than NOGs. Thank you.
Thanks, Gaurav. The next presenter is me for PhNOG. I'll just set this up. Morning again. Good afternoon, sorry. Gaurav, thank you for the very comprehensive update on NOGs. I think for all of us, I think it's the drinking part that will really invite the members to come together. So it's an open invitation. After the event today, we have some drinks sponsored by APNIC or paid by APNIC. So let's drink all the booze that we can. Okay. Nobody replied. Okay. So I'm Achia Chensa. I represent members later to discuss some stuff. Before we discuss what we do in PhNOG, let's go back to some history. This a bit of a disclaimer. Unfortunately, there was no written documentation for PhNOG, origin, etc., etc. So we had to interview, talk to those guys who actually started. So this is a mashed up version of those stuff. So by mid 1990s, there was this organization called PISO. PISO, coincidentally, is a currency in the Philippines on that part, which shows our national hero. And PISO stands for Philippine Internet Services Organization. It was incorporated in 96 and had like 30 members. And the main objective, or one of the major projects of PISO, is to set up a domestic internet exchange. So traffic at that time was in baud. So bauds, we are now in gigabits, etc., etc. But eventually, to support the Philippine Internet Exchange, this group called PhNet. They actually already had that local internet exchange, but specifically for academe. So you can check the references for that one. Late 90s, the PhNOG was established. So we actually, the late 90s was. So if somebody can help, or we're still doing the research, that will be great. And at that time too, PHIX was established. This was a document made by Amante. And in 2007, PHOpenIX was established PhNOG. In 2000, PhNOG signed an MOU with APNIC. And in March 2014, we celebrate the 20 years of Philippine Internet. And PhNOG participated. Those three on my left. Okay. And last year, July 2014, we had a forum on the Internet Exchange, which was held in the ASTI building in Quezon City. Okay. Then February of the next year, we had a forum on the Internet Exchange again, part 2, was also held in the ASTI building. And early this year, we participated in Apricot in Japan. So together with me, there was, and then this is the meeting with APNIC. We had a presentation during the APX event. And the picture over there is a photo with the Internet Society members. We have a real-time edit, right? We don't have a video of this now. So for that, you need to pay me already. Sorry. Okay, moving forward. As Gaurav mentioned, we really have a lot to do. So the PhNOG, I think, was established early 90s, but was silent. Really typical for us Filipinos, a bit silent, but we in the background. The NOG are participating, so I'm calling out other members who would like to volunteer to share the experience and be part of the core team. We'll be having a meeting this afternoon. Okay. We have a mailing list at the PHOpenIX website. You can add your email address there. So it will be up and running when give us a week. We have an FB page, actually. So it's a secret group, so there are only 3 members. There are actually 2 groups. I did not post the other one because there's only 1 member, and that's me. So I already actually had number of requests from other participants. So you can initially contact me at Chensa. That's my contact details. And also Bani from ASTI. Maybe you had the latest meeting of PhNOG in last March was also well attended. And I gave a closing remark, and I would like to repeat it again, that sometimes it's actually who you know. So the problem with us is actually there are some people that are really good, but we really don't talk to each other. The sample of corrupt that the 2 big names is a fact, and we have to address that. So the mouth and everything, so we can have collaboration. So I challenge the Filipino community, let's make this happen. Thank you. Our sessions in the afternoon will be an IXP session and it will be also hosted. It will be presented by people to also talk about their network, or at least know them. We actually made a template. You can send this to know who you are, what you do, etc., etc. How do we contact you during Asia and other stuff. If you don't have the other details, it's okay. So we'll be having lunch. You can talk with APNIC members and mingle with everybody, and I'll see you back after 1 hour. Thanks again.